I'm starting to see a trend on how enlightened they are about what the silos are and what the causes are. What I'm finding is that you still have some leaders, and when I use the word leaders, right, I'm talking about business leaders, I'm talking about organizational development leaders, leaders in HR. So it really is leaders across the organization. And if I'm targeting the business leader at this point right now, there's a number of them who are enlightened that there's something wrong and that the silos are a challenge and that restructuring isn't going to solve the problem. Part of the reason they're there is because they've tried it already, right? So I just had a conversation with someone recently who said, oh, we restructured into these focus areas and we're doing great at the focus areas, but we've lost focus on the centralized piece. And they've started to talk about, well, what's the solution? And she explained to me, she's like, I realize that if we do this again, we're just going to go back to where we were, and we needed something different. So there's definitely that trend out there. Leaders, HR leaders that I've worked with have started on, one person explained to me how she had worked with the whiteboard, and she put the entire org chart and she's drawing it on the board, and she says, I'm now connecting boxes and I'm putting lines and I'm realizing that something's not right. This is not solving the problem. So she stopped, which is great, right? So when you're enlightened, it's about stopping before you restructure and saying, okay, what's really the problem here? So again, reaching out to others, that are in the field, talking about, what's really causing us to be operating in a silo. Now, I want to mention about silos, which is interesting. A lot of people talk about silos and they're thinking functional groups, marketing, sales, IT. You can have silos in your geographies, right? I've worked with organizations where their regions are their silos, so that within a region, they're working well, but they want to be operating as a global company. And now each of the regional presidents are running it as if they have their own private company. Well, that's a silo. And again, it's the same cause that I haven't addressed how I make a connection, how I create an integrated operating model. And that's what we want to really address. So I'm excited that leaders are really starting to let go of these old rules and approaches and methodologies and looking for something different. The challenge is they're looking for matrix management and they'll find it, but they'll still find some of the old stuff. So to me, the enlightenment piece is to really start to think about what we've used in the past hasn't worked, so I need a different solution. I need something that's really going to shift the focus to the horizontal dimension, to the way work gets done, to that non-authority relationships between internal customers and internal suppliers, and how those handoffs are really partnerships. So we really want to help them start to see that from that perspective. One of the key conversations I have with leaders and business partners who get on the phone with me, I'll be talking to them and they'll tell me that they're struggling. And I just had this happen a couple of weeks ago where they're like, oh, do you have a crystal ball? Have you actually sat in our meetings? And then they start to realize like, oh, this mustn't be as unique as a problem, right? It's common that people are struggling with this. And what I explain to them is that they are unique as an organization, right? So that every organization has their own specific strategy. Every organization has their own specific technology. They need a methodology and approach that's actually going to drive their strategy in the way that they want to do that with the capacity they have. That's not cookie cutter. And some approaches think that organizations in the same industry with the same type of customers need to be structured exactly the same way. And they'll ask me, well, what's the best practice? I'm looking at, my marketing department should have 50 people because we're this size. Or my technology group needs to have this many people. Or I'm supposed to be set up with this many customer service. To me, if you're focusing on capacity like that, you're not concentrating on what your strategy is. You're not really looking at, well, this is where I want to be in 3 years, or this is where I want to be in 5 years. Well, that's where we need to be focused on and setting up the organization to get there. So you may have a more aggressive strategy, than your competitor. Well, your solution in terms of how you run needs to be unique and different than your competitors, because you might need more capacity now where they don't. So I really like to talk to leaders to help them become enlightened in terms of what do they need specifically to drive their specific strategy. And once we can get them there and really help them, I think we can really, help organizations really push themselves to get where they want to go in the most effective and efficient way.